Hi, everyone. I'm Brene Brown, and welcome to the Texas Tribune Festival. A couple of the most important things that I've learned over the last few decades of research really have to do with the importance of hard conversations. One, I think we make the most magic out of conversations where there's discomfort and tension, different experiences, different lived experiences, different ideas. The second thing I've learned is the key to staying in those conversations is curiosity. While you're here at the festival, I think there are going to be a lot of hard conversations. And my wish for you is that you lean into them with curiosity. And as my friend Harriet Lerner says, that you listen with the same passion and energy with which you want to be heard.
Backstage, Representative Pelosi was telling me they were here to see me and the line was around the block, but they're here to see her, correct? Let's just acknowledge that, correct? I mean, I'm not nothing, but still, I'm not Nancy Pelosi. So I was joking to you last time. We talked together in July in D.C., and you ran over me like, I don't know, I was Joe Biden on a bike path in Rehoboth or something. And I'm going to tell you this time it's not happening.
Okay.
Okay, all right.
Your turn.
Okay, it's The Art of Power, and I've learned a few things from reading your book. So just for people to know, there's going to be questions from the audience. If you have a question for the speaker, please submit them at texastribune.org/ask, and we will get to your questions as much as we can at the last 15 minutes. So we've got a lot to talk about. How are you doing? Happy 61st anniversary for her and Paul Pelosi also.
Yeah, that's nice.
They celebrated last night in San Francisco, which is where I'm headed, which I'm thrilled to be headed, and where Speaker Pelosi's been my representative for 30 years.
My boss, she's my boss.
Yes, right, yeah. Let's get into it. There's so much to talk about. Now, do I have to call you Speaker Emerita? Emerita?
No, actually, that's the position.
Okay.
The title is Speaker.
Okay, good, excellent. That's what
I mean, if I were a man, you would call me Mr. Speaker.
Yes, I'm used to calling you that, and I'm going to continue to call you Speaker.
But anyway, we're all here to see you, so
yes.
Thank you all for coming so much.
All right, so as I've said before, you are arguably the most powerful, one of the most powerful people in American political history, and certainly the most powerful woman. No. I would say, maybe not yet, but we'll see. I can't imagine a better time or person to talk about effective leadership, and this is what your book's about. We're going to talk about that, and I'm going to interweave it with news that's happening. There's a lot of news happening. I don't know if you've noticed. Your last book, your book is called The Art of Power. Your last book, which was in 2008, is that correct? 2008 was called Know Your Power. First off, why is it an art, since most people think you practice it as a contact sport? And what do you know about power now that you didn't know then when you were saying know your power?
Well, first let me just thank the Texas Tribute Festival for once again bringing so many people together, so much thinking, so many ideas, and then with so much respect for everyone's point of view. The exercise of power has to have a demonstration of growth in terms of what it is. And the demonstration of power is when people see you use power, then they know you're going to use power, then you have more power. As I say in the book, if you have to know your why, you have to know your vision. What is your purpose? What is your knowledge of the subject? And therefore your judgment that people will respect. What is your strategy to get the job done? And then really, what is the That's intellectual. What is the emotional? What is in your heart that is about goodness, about what it is we're striving to do? So what I say in the book is, when you have power and you know your why, you know your what, you know your how, and all the rest of that, you can trust your gut on things and act. The more people realize that you are going to act, the less ready they will be to get in the way. And when I say get in the way, I mean, for example, in your organizations, in the academic world, a corporate world, whatever nonprofit world that you're in, if you know there's a plan, there's a vision, there's a plan, and you're going to take action, okay. But if you think, well, I don't know, maybe then everybody else has an agenda, and pretty soon your options are narrowed. So you must be ready, and you must act. And women, in particular, have intuition, which helps along the way to shall we say, give confidence to the path that we're going to set forward. So when I became Speaker, that was really, I never thought that we would have a woman Speaker before we had a woman President of the United States. And again, I said to my colleagues, don't vote for me because I'm a woman, but don't vote against me because I'm a woman. Hear what I have to say. And that is exactly what Kamala Harris is doing. She is presenting, but she's not.
She isn't talking a lot about it. I'll get into that in a second. But did you, when you first became Speaker, know your power? Obviously, getting to be Speaker means you're a powerful person or you have skills in power.
Yeah.
What do you think got you there and kept you there?
Well, the thing is that I knew that when I became Speaker, it was historic. Because, as I said, I never thought there'd be a woman Speaker because the Capitol is sort of not glass ceiling, we're talking marble ceiling. We're talking marble ceiling. And it was a situation where I thought I would be in the leadership, but maybe Dick Gebhardt would become Speaker. We had to win. We had to win in order for the speakership to be available. But I knew that when I became Speaker, as the first woman Speaker, I had to show a vision, knowledge, judgment, strength, and the fact that we were going to act. We were going to act with more diversity in the manifestation of the party, whether it was leadership, whether it was membership, whether it was staff in high positions, that it had to be something that represented some change.
So is there one skill that you had that you think made you better and good at that? Because you're well known for running things, like really even recently, like things happen when you want them to happen. So is there one skill that you have? She always looks at me like, what are you talking about?
Some attribute it to the fact that I have 5 children in 6 years.
Yeah.
I don't attribute it to that, but I'm proud of that.
Yeah.
But no, it is the one word that I would use for all of it is respect. Respect for the points of view of all of our caucus is magnificently diverse. And I say to them, our diversity is our strength. Our unity is our power. So in order to be respectful of all of that diversity, in being respectful of all that diversity is a path to success.
It's a level of firmness that you have to put out. It's a level of strength that you have to project. The reason I'm asking is because this is one of the things that Vice President Harris has to keep projecting is strength.
Yeah, strength is very important. See, here's my thing, though, just because we're in a little bit of a different scenario now. We have a nominee. We're going forward. I don't know how much you want to talk. We're able to talk politics here, but when
how much do I want to talk about politics with Nancy Pelosi? Let me think.
Yeah, I'm a politician.
I've heard.
I take great pride in that. The thing was, you know this, Cara. We lost in 94, 96, 98. 2000, it was like I got tired of losing. Now, I had been the chair of the California Democratic Party, so I knew how to win elections. I wasn't particularly the person in front. I was more the person behind promoting the candidates and the causes of the Democratic Party. But I just said, look, I know how to win elections, and I'm going to take us to victory. And when I took them to victory, I got the gavel. So that was an important transition.
So when we spoke in D.C. in late July, it was at the end of a pretty incredible month for American democracy and politics. In a span of 7 days before we talked, we witnessed an attempted assassination of former president and Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump, and then the nearly unprecedented exit from the race of his opponent, President Joe Biden, the sitting president. At the time, you assessed it in different ways, but since then we've had 2 conventions, a very fast race for the presidency, and now the debate this week. How are you assessing it right now? And I want you to talk specifically about the debate coming up, because that's the next sort of tentpole on this road towards November.
Well, in terms of the debate, I hope that it will be, I know from the standpoint of Kamala Harris, that it will be a debate that the American people expect and deserve. A clear contrast between the visions of one or the other, where they can find common ground. Hopefully there can be something unifying in all of that, because that's where we have to take the country down a path of being more unifying, respectful, as the festival advocates, and to see a clear distinction of what this means to you, what this means to to people at their kitchen table, the most important table in America. Not the corporate table, not the cabinet table, but the kitchen table, where people make their decisions about the education of their children, their work and how they proceed with that, their possible pension, the cost of health care, prescription drugs. All of that weigh into how people see a public servant meeting their needs.
So what does each of them have to do and not do? What does Kamala Harris have to do in this debate? What's critically important that she communicate?
Well, I'm not one that gives advice. I do in terms of we're going to mobilize and win at the grassroots level. We're going to have a message that is bold and progressive, but not menacing, but rather unifying. And we're going to have the resources, financial and otherwise, the money, the third M, to get the job done. What I tell candidates to do, and this would be there, is just be yourself. You know why you are in this position. You have to show your why. What is your vision? What is your knowledge and judgment? As I said, that same criteria. What is your strategic approach to this? Now, if I asked, so you did ask me.
I did.
And also the last thing is the empathy, what you have in your heart. And nobody had the vision, the values, the judgment, the knowledge, and all the rest, and the empathy more than Joe Biden. This was a truly great president of the United States. Consequential, getting so much done in the one term, the first 2 years legislating, next executing a terrific policy for our country, to that addressing the needs of that kitchen table. What I would hope, as I say, I don't give advice, but what I would hope is, and I think is so obvious, is that when people say, well, should she separate from Joe, and should she? No, should spring from Joe. This was remarkable what was done, the American Rescue Plan, the Infrastructure Plan, the CHIPS and Science Plan, the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, the PACT Act for our veterans. The list goes on and on. You don't walk away from that, but you say this enables us to do more because it's values-based, it's visionary, it has a plan on how to get things done. So what I would like to see in the debate is how, what I know is true, that this presidency of Kamala Harris be one that takes us to new heights. And I want her to show those new heights.
Not turning the new chapter, because they're using that term, turning a page, turning a chapter.
Well, it's always about a new leaf. You know, it's new has to be part of it. But it's a new enthusiasm. Without the work that was done, says she, immodestly with the Congress of the United States to get that legislation passed, House and Senate, as well as the president and vice president, we wouldn't have this basis. And I think any leader, be that Joe Biden or me as Speaker, says she, again immodestly, I want whoever comes next to do better, spring from this. Consider this a foundation. This is not a ceiling, this is a floor.
So Donald Trump will try to link her with that, has been trying to link her with the Biden administration. You say, let him. Yeah,
but embrace it, but also not to stay in place, but to go to new heights.
What advice would you give Donald Trump for the debate? You're super close, I know.
Yeah.
You are close in a way.
He takes my advice, yeah. Do you think he's going to show up?
I do.
You do?
Yeah.
You think?
Yeah. Do you know something I don't know?
I know cowardice when I see it. Yeah.
So
I know bullying when I see it.
So I assume you agree with Liz Cheney calling him a misogynist pig. Is that correct? Liz Cheney on this stage called him, I think it was a misogynist pig? Yeah, she called him that.
Isn't she wonderful? But how about Vice President Cheney endorsing Kamala Harris?
Yeah.
Wow.
Were you surprised by that?
Well, I was hoping that some adults in the room of the Republican Party, you've heard me say again and again, the country needs a strong Republican Party. This party the grand old party, done so many good things. You know, two great presidents from Texas. I didn't agree with their policy, but they were patriots in our country. George Herbert Walker Bush and George Bush, we worked together on many issues. We disagreed on things like the Iraq War, but nonetheless, patriots. And there are others, Bob Dole, John McCain, all the rest, so many great leaders springing from the Republican Party. And now it's a cult to what did she call him?
Misogynist.
Is that what's more of a euphemism, thug?
Thug, okay.
Yeah, thug.
Okay.
So again, I'm trying to stay in keeping with the...
yeah, niceness. Yeah, I see that.
Be nice.
What?
I am being nice, by the way. I could do worse.
I'd love you to talk about then character-driven leadership, I guess. One of the topics, you mentioned President Obama called President Biden a patriot of the highest order for stepping down. Lots of people like yourself have been saying similar things. And talk about this idea of bowing out of power. You gave up very big power. I don't believe for a second that you've bowed out in any way. Obviously you haven't. But what is your role now? How do you look at it? And talk about that transition from being one of the most powerful political people.
Yeah. Well, I was sort of on a mission. I wanted to get certain things done. Mm-hmm. And the path that I saw to go further was to yield, pass the torch. I was a person of great power. The Speaker has awesome power. Now I'm a person of great influence. Not so much power, but whatever influence there. So I feel very excited about Hakeem Jeffries, Catherine Clark, Ted Lieu, and Pete Aguilar from California. They're spectacular. They show the beautiful diversity of our caucus, and they are, each one of them, so spectacular. So I felt pretty great about where the party would go. Just want to tell you this. On January 6th, 2025, Hakeem Jeffries must have the gavel and be the Speaker of the House. Must have the gavel. If the Democrats had not had the majority in the House, and I say this immodestly, and I didn't have that gavel, we would have been in a very, very difficult situation. And we have made a decision to win this election, and we can if we're
We
allowed
are
to
going
talk
to. I'm
about
going to
how
ask
we
you about that
talk
right now. Yeah.
but to win the election. But what's his name will still probably be a troublemaker. And so we have to have the House and the Senate.
All right, so what worries you as you head into the final stretch? The polls are extraordinarily close. The advantage swings from Trump to Harris and back again. It just turned back again towards Trump again, although she seems up in some states, he's up in other states. Recently, there were some predictions the electoral race is in Trump's favor. The current Speaker of the House said that the GOP could take the House, Senate, and the presidency. Yeah. Talk about where you think the race is right now, given how close it is at this point, given all the negatives about Trump and what you just articulated about him.
Again, winning an election is a decision. You make a decision to win, and you do everything, again, with great values to do so. Mobilize. You must own the ground. What we have seen with Kamala Harris is an outpouring of so much volunteerism, so many people who want to make the calls, walk the precincts, text
the money,
postcard, all of that. It's overwhelming, but it's not to be taken for granted. It must be done. Mobilize, own the ground. Message. You have to have a message that I've said earlier that is unifying, that is progressive and bold, but not menacing to some. And because you don't run on empty, people want to see what this is about. And then the third is the resources that you need to win. That's money. That's the third M. And all of that is coming in a very big way for Kamala in terms of the volunteers and the resources. The other thing, that were the three M's. I have the three no's. No wasted time, no underutilized resources, and no regrets the day after the election. If only we had only done a little bit more here, there, and everywhere, especially in the electoral college states that are so close. I have no doubt that Kamala will win the public vote, but the popular vote. But those races are close. They require constant, daily, one good day in front of another.
So what, are you worried? Why is it so close? From your assessment as a political, this is a guy who's done a lot of things that you have characterized as thugs. The attack on the Capitol, there's just the video that came out where you're talking about he's got to pay a price. Mm-hmm. He's clearly not paying any price. He could win the presidency again. Well, why is that from your perspective?
Well, he hasn't, I think he's paid some price. I mean, he's twice impeached and soon will be twice defeated president of the United States. Mm-hmm. But we have to make that happen. That is nothing to be assumed. I always say to the members, assumed is a word that says ass of you and me.
Yeah.
So assume nothing. You just go out there and fight the fight as if each race is the hardest race that you have ever been in. Mm-hmm. And there are people who will never be, shall we say, inclined to support Democrats because they just have a different orientation toward women, people of color, LGBTQ. You know, they just are not ever going to be there. So say that's about like 30% or something like that, and then of the Republicans. And then you have very, very rich people who do not really want to pay taxes or have any regulation of clean air, clean water, any of that. So you have to deal with that. Now, it's not as many very, very rich people, but it's a lot of money that goes into a campaign. But here's where I think we have to be as respectful and understanding as possible. There are people who are concerned. They have fear of globalization. They saw the factory down the road move overseas. They're fearful of innovation. Their father is a truck driver, and now they're going to have,
autonomous truck.
Yeah, and so the innovation, globalization, and they include immigration in there, although immigration is not the big job taker. In some parts of the country, there are some jobs that are lost, but actually migration, it really fuels the economy, and especially the kinds of jobs that newcomers take, whether it's on farming or whatever it happens to be, until they work their way up. And so understandably, these people have a concern about the future for themselves, but also for their children. And that's why what Joe Biden did is so good and has to be projected and put out there, is that these jobs that we did in all these bills, many of them do not require a college education. You can make, a lot of money in terms of the trades and all the rest, if that's the path you choose, because we have prevailing wage, Davis-Bacon in this legislation, and apprenticeships to bring people up and the rest of that. Because well over 50% of the American people do not go to college.
Correct.
And so, but people to have to see that opportunity there, and then if they go that path, and then they may want to further their education there. But right now, do you know that in this Project 2025, they are taking out the Department of Education?
Sure.
No more Department of Education, Head Start, greatly reducing that. They are saying to people who are working, no more overtime. No more overtime. They're having things that are very harmful to those same kitchen table people who are concerned about globalization, immigration, and innovation. But that is really what has to be addressed in our country, because these are people who have built our country.
So again, why are they attracted to him? Why is it so? It is extraordinarily close by like thousands of votes. It feels like this.
Well, I would be the last person to ask why anybody would vote for him. But to understand what we're up against, he's good at one thing. He's a snake oil salesman. He will say this, that, and the other thing, and do the rest. I mean, just two things I want to tell you. Two numbers. I love numbers, as you know. When he was president and had the majority in the House and the Congress, he passed one bill, and that was to give a tax cut, 83% of the benefits to the top 1%, corporate and wealthiest people, 1%, 83% of the benefits there. His agenda for this election is to pass that bill again. On the other side, Joe Biden came in, 15 to 16 million jobs created versus, what's his name, not the worst job creation record since Herbert Hoover. So when we talk about the middle class, the working class, and all that, the message has to be out there, the different path that our country would go down. Is it trickle down? That hasn't worked for any working families. It's only worked for those who are trickling. And or is it bubble up or grow from the middle? Since I'm talking numbers, there's one more number I want you to know, because this one, as a mother of 5 and 6 years and 7 days, this is an important number to me. We had a bill to codify Roe v. Wade, not codify, to enshrine into law Roe v. Wade. Of course, no Republicans voted for it, not one. But then I put on a bill on the floor that said women shall have a right to contraception. My members said, you're going to make these Republicans well. People are going to think, okay, that's a good vote. I see it in their eyes. Right? 8 Republicans voted for women to have a right to contraception. 195 Republicans voted no. How could that be? How could that be a reflection?
Well, I'd like you to answer it. How could that be?
How could that be?
How could that be?
And it's something we'll be conveying, of course, in the election, make sure people know, because people don't know.
Okay.
They think, oh my,
So,
if you don't like terminating, if you don't like Roe v. Wade, you must love contraception. No.
So
195 no right to contraception.
I do find something interesting that you're shocked by that. Most of us are not, because they behave like that. Let's talk about the idea if he does win, if Trump does win, a hypothetical. I'm going to ask you the same thing about Harris. What's your biggest worry about the first 100 days, given what you saw last time? You were right there, fighting it.
How can I say this to you without sounding disrespectful? There is no way I can even contemplate him winning the election. It just cannot happen, because what would be fearful, and not even before he would be president, would be what would happen to our democracy. And I know kitchen table issues are dominant in the election, but democracy is a kitchen table issue. The freedom of families to decide the size, timing, or if they're going to have a family, to be able to be in the workplace and have their work respected, to the health of their children, clean air, clean water, and the rest of that. So this is all about respecting the people. And our democracy, again, this was never an issue we had a discussion about with George Bush, father or son, or Mitt Romney, or John McCain, or any of the Bob Dole, any of the Republican candidates that were out there. It was never a question of our democracy being at risk. But I do believe that if he were to be elected, which I find hard to believe, but nonetheless, you ask the question, that the first thing that would be at stake would be our democracy. You just see what he's saying on the campaign trail now about, oh my God, the president of China is so strong. He has strength over 1,400,000,000 people, and if I get elected, people won't have anything to worry about because I'll be a strong man too.
So speaking of a strong man, he seems a little weak. Recently at the Economic Club, it seemed like a word salad, a chopped salad, even beyond that. I don't know what kind of salad it was having. Do you think he's having cognitive difficulties?
I don't think he has ever been on the level.
Okay.
I don't think he's ever been on the level, but
this was brought up with Biden. So do you think President Trump is too old to be president?
Well, they thought that Joe Biden, who's 3 years older, was too old to be president. Why isn't he too old to be president? But the thing is that this is the choice that we have.
Right.
We have a choice of a path that goes into the future that is a reflection of the values, the vision of our founders for this great democracy. This great democracy, they were the entrepreneurs of all time. They took risks. They challenged the greatest naval power that existed at the time, declared independence, fought a war, won a war, and set forth a country dedicated to what it said in the Declaration of Independence, that people are created equal. That wasn't actually reflected in the Constitution, but they had the brilliance to make the Constitution amendable so that we could ever be expanding freedom in our country, and we always were. We always were, whether it was the abolition of slavery, black men having the right to vote, then eventually women having the right to vote, Roe v. Wade, all these things, until the Dobbs decision was the first time our country said, no, we're backing up on freedom, your freedom to decide size, timing, whatever it is, of your family. The first time we've come backward. So that's who they are. They take pride in that. He takes pride in that. The service of our men and women in uniform that fought for freedom. We have an election that's about freedom or extremism right now. And again, the aspirations of our children to live in a world where the democracy is guaranteed, the planet is safe, the opportunity is there, and that they can reach their fulfillment.
What's interesting, though, is Kamala Harris's campaign is backing away from the idea of democracies at stake all the time.
No, because I don't disagree with that. I'm saying it here. It's not exactly why people will be voting, many people don't believe it is so at risk, because if they did, why would they even vote for him? So again, what is the value that drives you? What is your why? And then how do you win the election with the issues that are...
Speaking of that, speaking of Kamala Harris, the Republicans are ready to cast her as too liberal elite from California. That's something you're familiar with.
Yeah.
That was the take on you. Now they think you're not left enough, which is interesting. Will that work? What advice would you have for her on legislative priorities if she does become president? And to get there, she is doing a lot about middle class. She's not doing about democracy. She's minimizing Donald Trump. She's minimizing being a woman, being the first woman president. She's minimizing her race. She said next, in the interview with Dana Bash, she said, old story, next question. She's minimizing all those things that you're talking about. What is critical for her to do, and how do you think about this strategy that she's using?
Well, I'll frame it a little different way. When Joe Biden came to the Capitol to make his first State of the Union address, there it was, the Vice President, a woman, the Speaker of the House, a woman. It was a remarkable thing when you think of how far we had come. So people have said to me, how did it feel? I said, well, you know, it's a funny thing. I understood the moment, that's for sure. I knew the path that it takes to get to that place. But what was more important is what he was saying. What he was saying was that women, in order for women, and dads too, I don't just say this as women, but families, have to have things that enable them to reach their fulfillment, whatever that is. And that is affordable child care, family and medical leave, a child tax credit, issues that relate to enabling home health care, in case you have a family member who might not be a child or might be a sibling, might be a parent, might be a child, but enabling women and caregivers, again, it could be men, women to be in the workplace knowing that their families were okay. And that's what I was thinking. I was thinking, not only this, but that. And there's so many of those things that we were not able, we went down a path, we got some of it done, some of it has to be redone. The child tax credit, universal pre-K, all of these things that say we're a country about family, and whether it's your family or somebody else's family, but family, and that for us to have the full benefit of everyone's participation, moms, dads, everyone's participation, they have to know that the children
how important
are okay.
Is the issue, you mentioned, Dobbs, the issue of abortion.
So I think in the first agenda, we go to, that was some of the expired or unfinished business.
Child tax credits, health care, things like that. How important is abortion in this election right now as a motivator? People are definitely rallying with the Democrats on this. President Harris distinguished herself as a defender of abortion rights. I think it's a bigger issue than people realize, more than any of them. Do you think that?
Yeah, I do. Again, as mother of 5 children, 6 years and 6
You just had to pause. But 5?
That was beautiful for me, but everybody has to make their own, for me and my husband Paul, but that everyone has to make their own decisions.
I just have a question. Do you have a cat? You're a child.
Hey, I was
cat.
a cow.
Yeah.
Here's the thing about that, just politically speaking. In 2022, we had like a 5-vote margin, whatever it was, and we were down to like a 2-vote margin by then because somebody was running for governor, somebody was running for this or that. So we were down to a narrow thing. No, excuse me, this is 2020. 2020. So people said, she has it all wrong. I'm sorry again, we're 2022. Joe Biden is elected in this is 2022. She has it all wrong. She's running, has an important issue, a woman's right to choose. That's in a rearview mirror. Nobody cares about that anymore. Imagine that they would say that. So we knew in 2022, we had this narrow majority that we thought we could retain the House. You remember that people said we were going to lose by 30 or 40? It was going to be a red wave that was coming. We were going to lose by 30 or 40 points. Well, I said that can't possibly be true because we know our races. We're not running for president. We're running race at a time. And in these races, a woman's right to choose, protection of the environment, gun violence protection, and issues that relate to the economic security of America's working families were really important. And so voted against this, against that, against this, against that of the Republicans. And on our side, this was the contrast. She's going to owe an apology because she's leading with a woman's right to choose. We lost 5 seats, all in New York. All in New York, I say. All in New York. We'll win them back. But we didn't lose 30 or 40, but the big hummas in D.C. and in New York, in the press. Yeah, in the press.
Yeah.
Blame it on the press. The car always says, oh, blame it on the press. And those,
Don't blame it on me.
and some of the Democrats who would go on the shows and say, oh, no, she was all wrong. So, no, a woman's right to choose was a very big deal in 2022. We didn't lose 30 or 40. We lost 5 in New York. We'll win those back, and there's a whole reason for that. Right. But so I think, to your point, it's been a big issue. And the statements being made by the former president, what's his name?
Yeah,
and
Trump.
His vice president.
His name is Trump.
Are only making matters
May's worse.
worse.
He keeps switching. And also his vice president seems to be saying different things.
Yeah, that one too.
That guy too.
Yeah, no,
So
let's understand. 8 people voted for a woman to have contraception. 195 voted no.
I love your shock at that again. I have just a couple more questions. We have questions from the audience. You faced your fair share of sexism over the past 37 years in office, I assume. Not too much, I'm guessing, though. You've been able to get and keep power. Has that been an issue for you? Because this is something Kamala Harris is, again, not leaning into, not identity. Her identity is taking a back seat to what she's trying to say. Can we elect a woman president? Why has that not happened before you became Speaker of the House?
Yeah. I don't know. I believe that Hillary Clinton was one of the best qualified people to run for president. Mm-hmm. I think Barack Obama admitted that. Her husband, with all due respect, George Bush, she was the best qualified person of a generation to be running. And we really thought that she would win. And she didn't. And I don't want to relitigate the campaign and this or that. But I think we're at a different place now. Mm-hmm. I think she paved the way, and that was good. I think when I went to Congress, there were 13 Democratic women. We now have 94 because we made a decision. Now we still want more. But we made a decision that would happen. So Kamala, and I know her very well for a long time, she's a person personally a person of deep faith. That's what is manifested in her concern for people and public service and her civic activities. Personally. Officially, she is very strong. She knows the policy, she knows the strategy, she knows the importance of it all, and eloquent in making her presentation. You've seen that on Women's Right to Choose, but other things as well. Personally, deeply faithful, officially strong, politically very astute. She has won very difficult elections along the way. not because she was a woman or because she was politically astute. So I have every confidence that she's going to lead us to victory. And Tim Walz, I served with him for 12 years in the House. He is spectacular. Tim Walz he won a very red district. He won, you know this, a very red district. He turned it blue. In 2006, he was part of our taking back the House, getting the gavel. And he came to Washington representing a very red district and voted courageously for the Affordable Care Act, went home and won, came back and became a champion, continued to be a champion for the veterans in the Congress as the top Democrat on the Veterans Affairs Committee, doing things that hadn't even been done, better than what had been done since World War II for our veterans. So he is top-notch and great. And he has, shall we say, a comfort level of showing a difference between himself and the
he also knows how to order a donut.
What did you say?
He knows how to order a donut. By the way, what
which is not a hard, it doesn't appear to be
what's
an
your
easy
favorite
thing to do.
donut? What's your favorite donut?
What's my favorite donut? Yeah. The one and only puffy chocolate.
Okay. All right. 2 last questions, and we'll get questions from the audience they're going to bring out. I think I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you a tech question, but because just in the news this week, it looks like Russia's doing an enormous influence peddling scandal around right-wing podcasters who seem to think they're worth $100,000 a video for some reason. As I could have told you, the economics are off a little bit. So it's turned out the Russians have been paying for a lot of this stuff. The tech moguls such as Elon Musk are backing Trump. Some aren't, like Reid Hoffman, Reed Hastings, many others. But big tech's been a big source of funding for Democrats and now Republicans, and they are the most powerful people in the world at this point. What responsibility, you and I have talked about this over the years, are you disturbed by their activity in this election, and what is their actual responsibility, and what's the responsibility of people like you to regulate them?
Well, the ability for people to make contributions to the candidates that they choose. That's their business. That's the way it is. But in terms of the responsibility that the tech community has to our children, and to make sure that foreign powers are not, in the 2016 election, it was shameful what happened at Facebook. They were getting Russian money, in rubles probably, and they were saying, we didn't know it was Russian. Well, no, you should have.
Right.
And it was very damaging in the election. But more important than damaging the election, what some of it is fairly damaging to our children. And they have a responsibility. And that's a fight that we are having right now, a bill that is bipartisan in the Senate and in the House. And there has to be, again, respecting entrepreneurship and all that, and that's important to our country, but there also has to be a responsibility to our children. And this is a fight that we will have.
Were you surprised by the rightward shift of someone like Elon Musk, since we're in tech? Were you surprised by the rightward shift of someone like Elon Musk?
I don't even know anything about him, and I can't speak with any authority about that because, rightward shift from where? Where was he before?
Yeah, that's a fair point.
I don't know where he was before.
Yeah.
I don't know.
One of the greatest power moves she ever made, we were at a book party in Washington for Walter Isaacson, who wrote, obviously, that book. And she had the book in her hand, and she dropped it. It's a big book. And she goes, I don't know why you want to write about this guy at the book party.
But he told me the other day that his book is going to be about, he said, okay, you've made it clear to me, but I'm doing a woman next.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. Well, last question. In 2022, when you stepped down from the House leadership, you said, quote, every day I am awe of the majestic miracle that is American democracy. One of the things you've said over and over again is my favorite thing is for the children. You say that all the time. You're like, I'm going to kneecap this person for the children.
No. I didn't say kneecap.
I love when you say for the.
I said, when you get in the arena, you have to, to the candidates, you have to be ready to take a punch, and you have to be ready to throw a punch for the children. I did not say kneecap. So
the question is, in our house, every time we want to do something bad, we go, we're going to eat this for the children. we manage you. But do you still feel that way every day? You're in awe of given all that's gone on, the majestic miracle that is American democracy.
yes, and let me say before we start taking questions from the audience what a privilege it is for me to be with all of you, but to be with Kara. She is a phenomenal figure in our country. Whether we like it or not, she speaks truth to power all the time, whether it's power in the tech industry or in the government.
Well, for the children.
And she has a beautiful family.
I don't have 5, I have 4. I'm trying to keep up, and I'm a lesbian, so I...
Well, 4 at this generation. Mine were, another generation ago.
Children of a lesbian.
But thank you for the honor of being with us today.
So, American democracy. And
American democracy. Okay, see,
yeah, that.
I represented San Francisco for a long time.
This is a softball name. Speaker Pelosi.
Okay, so but I grew up in Baltimore, and in the Italian neighborhood in Little Italy, which was near the harbor, where the national anthem was written. Francis Scott Key wrote the national anthem there. And so every time I hear the anthem, and when you're at a game and you get toward the end, home of the land of the free, home of the brave, everybody cheers. But I cheer sooner than that. I cheer when it says, proof through the night that our flag was still there. And that's what we have right now. We're in a night where we have to come out of this and prove through the night that our flag is still there. And as we pledge every official day or academic day that our flag is still there with liberty and justice for all. Yes, I have confidence in the strength of the vision of our founders, the sacrifice of our men and women in uniform to protect our freedom, and our responsibility to the children for a better future for them.
All right.
Thank you for your questions. Oscar from Austin asks if congressional Democrats will continue to support supplying the Israeli military with U.S. weapons, even as civilian casualties continue to rise.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
So go ahead, say that again.
Yes. Will congressional Democrats continue to support supplying the Israeli military with U.S. weapons, even as civilian casualties continue to rise?
Oh, thank you for the question. That is a heartbreaking question. I said to some folks earlier, if a woman were in charge, she would have said from the start, just give us those hostages, and then we'll talk about what we do next. The American as well as the Israeli hostages. What has happened there is just outside, it's just intolerable. Has been in our national interest to support Israel. They are our security partner, our values partner, and the rest. But what is happening and our law says that if our weapons that we are giving are used in a way, this is an amendment that is in the appropriations bill, then we cannot continue with that assistance. Now, the distinction here that the debate is about is, where do you draw the line between, we have always said we would help Israel defend itself, where people might be thinking some of these weapons are being used offensively. So it's a challenge. It's not as easy as it may seem. But I do think that we should be able to use our leverage more fully with Israel to make sure that the collateral damage to civilians is not anything that we can associate ourselves with. So It's, as I say, it's difficult. They have to make the distinction between offensive and defensive. But really, Hamas is a terrorist organization, you understand. The October 7th was a horrible day, and the consequences of it were horrible. So it's not to be ignoring how we got to this place, but it is to be saying there has to be a better way to deal with this than tens of thousands of Palestinians being killed. So we have to take it to a two-state solution, and I use the word solution very positively. There has to be a solution that is two-state, that says that Israel and the Palestinians creating their state will have the security to protect themselves, to reach their fulfillment, to self-determine who they want to be as a country. Until we get to a solution, we still will have these challenges. But it really is heartbreaking. I was with Hirsch's family at the convention. They were so hopeful, just a matter of days. They were hopeful that he would be free. And then last Saturday night, we got the word that didn't happen. And that's one person, and our heart breaks for one person, but think of all the other families that are affected. War should be outside the circle of any solution of conflict that we have. We have to think in a bigger way than that.
Ruth from the Dallas-Fort Worth area asks, what would you say to voters who think the federal government is doing too much that should be left to state and local governments?
Well, that is the debate of our country since the very beginning. And has been a distinction between Democrats and Republicans along the way, although not exclusively confined to, there's been some overlap in that. And again, states are great places where laboratories of change can happen that can affect what happens at the federal level to go. But on the other hand, there are things that we can, as a nation, that we can do. I'm very proud of what we have done to have the Affordable Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act to extend more health access to quality, affordable health care to more people. I'm very proud of what we have done for our veterans. Our PACT Act, hundreds of billions of dollars to help those who are affected by burn pits and the rest. They asked, whatever her name is in Colorado, why she voted against it. She said, well, I don't want to spend hundreds of billions of dollars. Well, it's for our veterans. We owe them this. They were exposed to that. But there are things that the federal government can do, like, as I said, the Affordable Care Act, what we did to protect the environment, what we did with the CHIPS Act and the Science Act to keep us resilient and independent in terms of our factors of protection to manufacture in our own country and to educate people in that way. What we did with the Infrastructure Act to rebuild America in a way that involved people making decisions about safety and construction in their areas. There are certain things that are national in their scope. Yeah. In terms of what states can do, as an example, that's really important, and sometimes it rises to the level of being a national policy. But at that time, we have to be careful. We have to be careful about some of the basics, and in terms of fairness, in terms of freedom. In terms of freedom, if we had not repealed Don't Ask, Don't Tell, that's a federal matter. You can't do that on a state level. If we had not codified marriage equality, it would be a problem. Now we must do Roe v. Wade on the national level as the law of the land.
Well, I have to say,
And I do not think that should be left to the states.
okay. Yeah, it's not called the Disunited States of America. That's my feeling. Go
All
ahead.
right, one more.
Did you hear what she said? Say it again.
It's not called the Disunited States of America. And thank you for the marriage thing. It's worked out well for me.
Athy from Austin asks, do you think that Texas has the potential to reject the extremism of the modern Republican Party?
Do I think Texas has the
Potential to reject the extremism.
To reject the extremism of the modern Republican Party.
Well, that's going to be up to you all. I have a daughter who lives in Texas. I have 3 grandsons who are Texas cowboys. So I've probably visited Texas more than any other state other than where I've lived or worked. And I will be here a number more times, but that will be up to Texas. It has been the source of great Republicans in the past, 2 Bushes in recent memory. So that gives me hope. But it is also a big state, a state that is a border state as well, so it understands the issues. I'll just say in terms of immigration, when we became the majority, the first meeting we had with the President Bush, with the leader, House and Senate, Democrat and Republican, President Bush said, now we can have an immigration bill, a bipartisan, comprehensive immigration bill, because he had always been for that, and his father had always been for that, and Ronald Reagan had always been for that. And Senator McConnell said, no, I don't think so. We don't have the votes. And he said, they were all co-sponsors of the bill the last time. He said, well, just because they're co-sponsors doesn't mean they're going to vote for the bill. And that was a big disappointment to George W. Bush, because he really thought that this was important to who we are as a nation and our economy, have these people come in and invigorate our economy. And I don't know if I have a moment to just say, he's not a Texan, but he's Ronald Reagan, a Republican that perhaps people would come to a party like that. He said, this is the last speech I will make as President of the United States. He made this like on the morning of January 20th or the day before the swearing-in of the new president. Ronald Reagan, the great communicator, this is the last speech I will make as President of the United States, and I want to communicate a message to a country that I love. And he talked about the Statue of Liberty and the goddess of freedom and the beacon of welcome it was to the rest of the world for people to come to America. And he said, because our door was ever open, we were preeminent in the world. And should we ever shut that door, we may fail to be preeminent in the world. Don't take my word for it. Google it. I didn't do it justice because he was the great communicator, and it's much longer. But that's who we are as a country. And the Texas experience, and then Herbert Walker Bush carried on that tradition, and George W. Bush carried on that tradition, bringing their Texas proximity to the rest of our Western Hemisphere to bear there. So greatness has sprung from here before, so I'm hopeful that it can again.
All right.
And again, we have Colin Allred on the ballot, so until that happens,
All right, so everybody.
we have to get him to be elected.
So Speaker Pelosi will be signing books, but let's give it up for Speaker Pelosi.
No, let's give it up for Kara Swisher. Thank you. Thank you all very much.